Hello and welcome to another video where we're taking a look at Rite Rune. Rite Rune, a pretty decent deck overall. Had some pretty good luck with it so far, and hopefully we'll have some pretty good luck with it in the future too. Don't know if it's quite as powerful as Spell Boost. That Spell Boost does have, quite a high top end, but this thing's been reasonably consistent. It does a good job of warding out the enemies, especially with Norman and other big decent drops that you can make using your 5-drop Juno and stuff like that. Honestly, pretty happy with it. Also, while not cheap, still at the high end of legendaries with 12. It's solid enough for the early game that you could probably get away with like messing with Olivia and Odin numbers to lower the cost a little bit, but overall I think the deck's a lot of fun and we're going to get right into it and check it out. Starting us off with a Rune versus Rune match. I do have one match against every craft today. This deck is a very solid choice, starting off with some really nice early drops to really make the board work. You're always looking for that Norman on 6, that's a pretty ideal play. Otherwise, you're just making as many Earthright cards as possible while playing pretty aggressively. That's why we're not playing some things like Kun, as his aggression just isn't really there. So overall, does fairly well, and can definitely do the job. So we end up just dropping some of these Earthright cards. We end up just cycling some cards. There are so many like draw engine-y cards that you can kind of utilize, which is always nice. But for the most part, you're just trying to be aggressive. You're trying to put pressure on your opponent to deal with your board. While also just generating as many Earth Sigils as you can so that when you do get to those later turns, you can start using those Earth Sigils to your advantage. It's really the big thing with this deck, being able to take advantage of those. So we do see the Anagraya from our opponent, looking like they're running some kind of spell boost, potentially even hybrid build. But Glacial Crash does a really nice job of cleaning this up and getting a little bit of damage in. I'm a big fan of Glacial Crash currently. Don't know if I'll be a big fan of it long term, but it's a solid removal card that takes advantage of the Earthright to potentially do 2 damage. It can get you some unexpected lethals. So as you can see here, we get to play the Norman out. You can take advantage of his Evo effect for the extra barrier golems. This deck is pretty Evo heavy, so you've got to really try and pick and choose when you use Evos. Norman's pretty much always the safe one, and the Latium, whatever it is also a really good choice, which is our 8 cost in our hand here. Does a really nice job of clearing things. Olivia is also a pretty decent Super Evolve target, as it does allow you to put some early pressure on, and the same with the Remy and Rami, also another good Super Evolve target, as you're going to see here. Since we can really take advantage of it by just boosting the golems and setting up even more sigils, so it's a really nice combination to go with. It gives you a very similar effect to Olivia, but you get the extra damage, which is always good. This just leaves them on just 8 health that we have to deal with. Very manageable. We actually don't need much to live here to win. And the barriers should hopefully be enough to keep it alive. Although we are going to probably see a Stormy Blast. Yep, there it is. So we have a couple of alright plays here now. Juno isn't an awful one, as it does get us a clear. And we can just kind of wait it out. May even throw down the extra Evo so that we can get the Guardian Golem generation going. And we even pick up an Odin, which gives us another potential way to go for a lethal. We do end up seeing their own Odin come down. And a declimb. Odin is just such a good card. Yeah, I'm glad the sigils gain aura, otherwise Odin would actually be a pretty big problem. But not really a lot going on for our opponent here. We can pretty freely just drop and potentially win off this. I mean, this is a double clear, no, triple clear, with extra damage to face. It is going to use our Evo point, but I think that's okay when you consider the fact that we're going to get more Guardian Golems out of this, and we have a recurring card that's going to recur 3 times, minimum. And being able to get this done before their turn 10, when they could go for a potential lethal, is kind of important. They do end up healing though, which is a little bit of a problem for us. This does mean we are at risk of losing this match depending on what they have in hand. But with just 2 cards, I bet on the fact that they probably can't really do anything here. At least not enough that would be destructive to me.
Coming through. You're tough.
Unfortunately, that bet pays off and they end up just conceding the match. So, following up, we have Forestcraft. This video is going to be on the longer side. This is another one of versing every craft, or almost every craft series that we've kind of been running here. These videos pop up occasionally when I have a deck that does exceptionally well and I can find enough opponents that it kind of makes sense to make the video. So again, we got some pretty okay early drops. I'm actually taking a big liking to the Enchanting Perfumer chick. She does such a wonderful job of generating Earth Sigils while clearing cards, so she doesn't consume Earth Sigils. She does give you quite a nice advantage. But I don't know, I don't think I realized that until maybe a couple more matches in at this point, because this was some of the earlier matches I played with this deck, as I was still trying to really learn it. But as you can see, we can generate a decent amount of Earth Sigils. I have considered running Pascal, but Pascal Dance would require us to burn 10, and that doesn't feel good. So I usually don't run that card in this variant. Especially since we're playing on the more aggressive side. So this thing plus Evo does get us basically a full clear while generating multiple Earth Sigils. It functions in a very similar manner to Havencraft. It makes actually a pretty good equivalent to Havencraft for us, as the value is not too different. You do potentially have 3 clears, same as Havencraft, and you also get the bonus advantage of generating Earth Sigils, very similar to Spell Boost, so... Perfume is just such a nice card. It is, of course, weaker than Enneagram since it doesn't generate extra body and ward and, you know, all those things, but it is a pretty nice, you know, Earthright equivalent. So we can set this out. We ended up going for the draw this time, which is fine, honestly, at that point. At least I think that's what we did. I don't think we took healing. I think we took draw there, given how many cards in hand. I wasn't actually paying enough attention to that one. And we're kind of just setting up now. There's not really a lot else to do here. I'm a big fan of Sage Light Ward as well. You do have to be a little careful when you play it because you don't want to burn too many Earth Sigils for the Evo effect. But it works out alright because next turn we can potentially play Lithium. We do have to be pretty careful. Forest is one of the few classes where they can just kill you. Like, if they have a decent Roach combo next turn, I would just lose, which is always unfortunate. Which is really nothing I feel like you can do against Forest a lot of the time. The best advantage you can kind of have is warding them out, but only really Haven has that kind of advantage. I guess Sword kind of as well, but they just have so many good ways to like deal with things, so it's kind of annoying. Lucky for us though, this legendary sticks really hard. Like, this is a 3-kill body with stats the equivalent to an 18-18. Like, dealing with it's just a pain. And we're not quite there for lethal, but we are getting pretty close. Odin could have opened up some potential, you know? I end up using the superior effect here. Probably could have got away without doing that, honestly. And I end up going for some heal to try and stay out of range of a potential Roach play. We finally get to see Cynthia. We're now in a position where Odin actually could potentially lethal. And they end up just buffing their fairies, not really doing too much here. Thank God we're not seeing a Roach play. Unfortunately, this plus Odin is going to be lethal and win us the game. Did get a little bit lucky that it wasn't some Roach variant. Could have been a real problem if it was.
This is new.
Like I said, I hope you guys were ready for a longer video. We're already nearly 10 minutes in, and this is only the 3rd guy we're going up against. Some of these matches do get dragged out pretty badly. So this time we have Abyss. Abyss, both Control and Aggro have been very popular in the current meta. Aggro probably more so than Control currently, although I think Control definitely has a pretty strong case. It's definitely a deck I will be checking out in the near future. So we really just want to trade with a lot of their early stuff a little bit. It's kind of annoying, but Aggro Abyss just has so much advantage when it comes to dealing damage that taking any damage is just risky. You want to mitigate literally as much as possible, as fast as possible, before you can get to your Norman play, which usually locks them out of making any good plays. The turn 6 Norman really does kind of shut down a lot of plays when you're coming up against Aggro Abyss. So we get to see the ward, which is the Departed Banes. They're kind of annoying, but at least they're not hitting us in the face. And good old Luna leader. Good old Crybaby Luna. Turn 5, we're not really looking at anything too crazy. Juno is going to be good enough though. Especially with Evo. And leading into the Norman play, we're just going to be able to generate more wards, which is great. So we get to see Ghastly, we get to see a Skeleton play, and a Reaper Death Slash. Not a bad way to do this, honestly. Especially with Evo. Fortunately, not really a problem for us. We're pretty much just going to Norman next turn if we want. We've mitigated all their damage. They've only got one to face just then with a Ghost, and that's really no threat. So Norman, we get a Golem. Norman again with Evo, we get another Golem. We can trade the Norman 7/7 into the 4/4, leads to the 7/3, and then we can generate another Golem at end of turn. And we still have 3 Earthright. So we do want to try and generate a little more Earthright next turn, as we go into the fact that we're going to try and get Latham to stick. This is where, like, if I had a target, Perfume would have been really good. But we can just generate sigils with our spell, so... And we're even going to throw the Evo down as well, so we can potentially go for lethal next turn, as much as we can. Especially with these Guardian Golems having barrier. It's really going to force our opponent into just having to play things like this Odin, which is really good. So we still have another barrier. We actually could win if we drew Remy. Unfortunately, no Remy. So I end up just committing to this, since if this does stick, we do just kind of win off it. We don't need a lot from here to win the game, so why not? And since it does have aura, it's also not an Odin target. So they could only Odin again if they wanted on the Golem. Which fortunately is just enough to win us the game. They really couldn't do a lot there. Alright, our next matchup is Portalcraft. Puppet Portal, Artifact Portal, still both pretty strong decks. I'm leaning towards Puppets being a little stronger than Artifacts typically, but that's my experience with the current ladder. It's probably different in the top end of competitive. I haven't played the super high top ends. I've mostly stuck around that like Ruby Sapphire rankings, up and down a little bit depending on what I'm playing and how my day's going. Don't usually sit in Diamond for too long. Plus it gets real sweaty up in Diamond for sure. A couple of times I have been up there. So this one is more of the Artifact variant, which I think we have a little bit better matchup into than the Puppet variant. Since Puppet does have a pretty decent way to kill your aggro plays and your mid-game plays, which isn't what you want to see when you're playing this deck. They can also easily trade into the 8-drop legendary there. If they use Puppets and Orcus, it becomes a real pain. So you're really just playing your 2-drops as much as you can, generating value. Fortunately for us, we don't really have a lot, so I end up just using the Evo point to generate an extra Earth Sigil so we don't lose our Earth Sigils when we do the Evo play. And then we just gain a couple more on top as well. We want to keep those Earth Sigils generating after all. So we can potentially go for another Evo Sage Light next turn. And we can continue to play pretty aggressively. Unfortunately though, since they didn't really end up doing anything else, we can kind of just play around this. We even just take more Earth Sigils so that we can stick more to board, and we even just be aggressive with our Evo here and push face, even with no Evo effect. It is a pity none of these have a standard Evo effect, only the gold has a super Evo effect, which is fine, it's a pretty okay one.
This might hurt.
Fortifier Artifact going for ward here. And then the B artifact, really not a problem for us. We're even going to get an extra play point here if we wanted it, but the Evo is fine. We can actually save the play point until next turn if we absolutely need to. Also just generating even more cards and throwing more, this time even a Super Evo play.
Can't be a failure forever.
For the damage, the draw, and the extra Earth Sigils. It's actually a pretty good target when we're going just for damage anyway. And we put him in range of our Odin, which is the big reason we wanted to do that Evo. So if they don't heal here, we can just hit them with the Odin for game,
Don't miss.
as it is just enough to do it. So now even if they full clear here, Odin on its own would be enough for lethal. Which is pretty obvious from here. And given that it's a banish effect, not a destroy effect, it's also not protected,
Shall escape the lash
even
of
with
my
that effect. So we just get to go Odin and Evo face. Pretty easy lethal.
Won't give up.
Very quick game, that one. Now on to one of the last 3 decks we have to fight. We have Havencraft.
It's a game.
Havencraft is actually the trickier matchup to play, honestly. Out of all the matchups we've played so far, this is one of the few that I don't like playing in too much. I mean, Spellburst Rune also isn't great to play into, just because we're on the slower side. You have to really play aggressive against these sort of decks.
The cutest.
You want to be dropping potential damage like every turn, pretty much.
I swear I'll be careful.
So they play the Ward Maid, kind of annoying, because now I've kind of just got to trade into it.
I made an absolute
Since I can't
mess.
afford to really leave anything up that they can just buff.
Ease up with them.
But like I said, we're just going to play as aggressive as we possibly can here. They are just going to keep warding me out though, which is pretty normal for Haven, so not much I can do in response. But at least I can go for more Earth Sigils.
Spark of knowledge.
Get ourselves going as fast as we kind of can, especially with Juno coming down on turn 5 potentially.
Let the sound of the bells give you joy.
And they go for massive wards here. This is actually where a Perfumer would be kind of perfect. Unfortunately, we don't draw it, but at least the Stage Light Ward does a really good job. Also, to be called Stage Light Ward and not have Ward is kind of funny. So it does let us take out at least 2 things. So we're going to have to Evo to take out the next. But it does leave up a couple of nasty bodies they have to deal with as we go into our Norman turn potentially next turn. They do end up having a pretty easy answer though in water, but hey, at least we force the water play before the Norman gets to come down. And the Norman trade-off here is actually fairly decent, so I don't mind too much. And of course, then I draw the Perfumer. Right when it would have probably been better last turn. So, pretty easy Norman here. We go for double barrier golems. Just kind of lets us set up. Plus, we also have Remy and Rami, so if one of these golems does live, we get some potential. Unfortunately, they go for the immediate full clear with Chalice there, so, or Vessel. Like, it's not a problem.
Ease up with
We're just going to keep playing cards, keep doing things. We're even going to play the Enchanter just to generate even more Earth Sigils. I wanted to get to 8 Earth Sigils there pretty nicely.
For me or anyone.
Behold divinity.
Well, that's kind of annoying. Not gonna lie, not the best card in the world for me to have to deal with. Honestly, if I had an Odin here, it would be perfect. Unfortunately, no Odin.
I think I'm stuck.
So we are gonna have to do the pretty shitty removal option, but hey, it works.
Shall escape the lash of my blade.
This thing now has potential for recursion. Very sticky thing and hard to remove. It really is. The only decent way to remove this would be Priest, since it's AoE removal on Super Evo.
Winds of light, shine forth.
Fortunately for us, not many Haven decks are running Priest right now, so
Winds will take
it's really not a big problem. It's pretty much always going to live for us.
so hungry. I think I'm stuffed. Not eating.
So even through the double attack, it does get to live, which does absorb a fair bit of damage for us. And now we have some pretty interesting options, actually. We can go for the Evo here on the Golem. So we do get the double, we get the normal Evo, and we get the Super Evo.
I'll always watch over you.
And that does let us full clear,
I hope my
while also
potions
generating
heal.
even more sigils.
The spark
And I decided to
of
just generate more sigils instead of healing. Probably should have healed, honestly, looking at it. But that actually did work out in our favor pretty well here. A little annoying that's a 7-8, but we have almost enough Earth Sigils alone to use Juno here as our full clear, especially once we use our engage effect. We also could have just played the Witches there. We've done it as well. Getting them as low as possible, as Glacial Lance does now become a potential lethal option. Unfortunately, with multiple wards, it doesn't become a lethal option anymore. Although, all we have to do is clear. So if we can find a clear option here that wipes everything from board, we'll be in a pretty nice spot. So we're going to hope for decent RNG, and that wasn't too bad. So we do end up getting the full clear. Even if we can't go for lethal there. They do go for another Aether play. And another crushing. Honestly, the worst thing I could have saw. And then we end up with another Glacial Crash. This time I take out the barrier. Which honestly is enough. The Glacial was actually perfect because the Super Evo does clean up for victory. Something I overlooked initially. Alright, our second last match, Dragoncraft.
This brings me back.
Not the best opening hand. The Norman's pretty good, but the Odins are pretty rough. The Apprentice is fine, so is the Melv. They're really our only decent cards here. We're basically just hoping it's not Aggro Dragon. If it is Ramp, playing a little bit slower isn't actually a big detriment to us, since we do generate a pretty decent amount of value. Orca's going to stop us from being aggressive though, which is a little annoying. Fortunately, we do get a little bit more draw. And thanks to Astrologer, we can even throw back this Olivia. Since we have an Odin, which I think I'd rather use an Odin at this point on 7 than the Olivia, so... And everything else in our hand is too valuable to not keep. Now, don't really have a lot else going on here, so we're going to try and dig a little bit more while generating some value to our board and engaging as much as we can there to get 4 Earth Sigils, just in case we do need that potential Ward Evo card. Which, now that we're seeing Feeny, we'll probably need. As it is just free removal on her. Although, looking back on it, we do have a lot of good options for removing her. Even Perfume is just a really good option instead. Because we can do that, we can even engage again. We get up to 6, which is a pretty nice spot when we're going into Norman next turn, potentially. And we also have the Olivia again now, so Norman into Olivia is actually a pretty nice combo. It's a good 6, 7, 8. It's actually probably a little even better than Odin if you can stick the Norman summons. Which against Dragon is pretty doable, especially since we haven't actually seen them ramp. I think we got a little lucky in that regard that this wasn't super hard ramp. Although they did end up playing the Phoenix, which is kind of brittle. But no Evo of the Phoenix, definitely trying to hold out. Unfortunately for them though, that is pretty much going to cause them to lose this game, as the Olivia gives us so much damage now. I believe this actually gets us very close to lethal, looking at it. Just 1 damage off lethal, and with a Super Evo, all we have to do is hope they can't really heal, and they do end up healing, but it's not really good enough here. And playing aggressive turns out to work in our favor, as the Norman plus Olivia does close game. So that previous matchup against Dragon really did solidify that Norman into Olivia is just such a strong combination, because those golems and stuff do potentially live more often than not, and being able to combo them together is really nice. It's also a good potential Rami play as well when you have those golems, so you have a couple of good Super Evolve options when going in for those plays. So you do end up finding the Norman, which is good. Against Sword, again, you gotta do the same sort of thing. You gotta play pretty aggressive. You do want to keep a couple of decent removal cards in like Perfumer and the Sage Ward, as you do need a decent way to deal with stuff. We don't end up finding too much, so we just decide to generate some extra Earth Sigils, getting ready for what we're going to probably have to do next turn. Gunslinger Maid into Gunslinger Maid. Perfumer is not quite a full clear here, especially with what we got, so we end up going for the ward since we can't Evo yet ourselves. I do feel like that ward is going to be crazy when we get a card that relies on Evoing a lot. Fortunately, I couldn't clear the Quick Blader, so they do go for the Zirconia. Fortunately for us, Perfume is going to be really good here. It's going to clear the Zirconia, and it's going to take out another 2 things with it, along with the Evo. Prepping us for the Norman play next, while generating extra Earth Sigils as well. And we even have a play point left to engage the extra Earth Sigil on top of that. So that turn we're generating 3 Earth Sigils while full clearing board, and leaving up a nice 5-3. And once Norman comes down, Sword's going to have a pretty rough time dealing with it. Especially after they committed a Lionheart to this board. So we get to go for the Norman. We get to go for the Golem. We get to go for the Evo. I think the Golem is probably the best option off Norman. But having the versatility to draw and heal is also very good. Especially later in the game, if you end up getting dragged out into a much longer situation.
Harmony of death and destruction.
Alright, and we see Gildra. I've been messing around with a mid-sword with this. And it's very good, honestly. It is actually a really good way to deal with the Norman. Such a strong, like, card.
The right cinch transforms you.
So we go for basically a free Perfumer here. We try and set up even more Earthright. Why not? We have both of our Super Evos still. But it doesn't look like we're really going to get to commit them super hard here. Which is a little unfortunate. I do decide to just kind of go for it though. As it is just going to stick to board and become something that has to be dealt with now. It's really a good pressure card, since it does just stick so hard. And right here, I don't think this is going to be enough to full clear on its own. As I don't think they can kill it the second time. At least not easily. Although that definitely does it, so that does get them the absolute full clear here nearly. If they had done that correctly, actually, they would have got the full clear. Sorry, so they did slightly misplay. If they had have rammed the 2 2s into it when it had 4 health and then attacked it with the Bane, they would have got the full clear, and that would have been super bad for me. Not so bad that I wouldn't be able to deal with it, though. I think we have such strong cards here that it wasn't really a big concern. But this definitely really, like, closed it out for them. I end up just attacking that too. I didn't want to have to deal with a potential Albert play, which, thank God. They might have still been just off from lethal, but having to deal with an Albert would just kind of suck. They also make another, like, a really dumb play here. They end up hitting the Norman instead of the 5/5, which, again, not sure why. Just kind of bad plays from the sword player all around. Leaving up the 5/5 when I can potentially generate more Earthright, so it sticks even harder, is just not smart. I guess this player just didn't really realize how that card works. But this is like one of probably 4 or 5 sword matches I had, and most of the others they would concede by the turn 6 Norman. This was definitely one of the few where they actually decided to play it out. I don't know if it's just been decided if for most sword players that this is basically an auto lose, as it's very hard to deal with, but this was one of the few where they actually decided to play up to turn 10, so that's why I've included this one instead of one of the others. So we get a pretty easy time here. We can just slowly chip away at them. We're at no risk of being lethal really at any point, so it's not really a problem. Although this is now a little more dangerous, so I do have to kind of answer this, which is kind of shitty. So I do need a good way to clear, and this card does give us the option. Especially using the mode here. It does mean I lose the ability to resummon the 5, but I think that's fine as long as I don't get a 3rd Albert play. We were going to be okay. Which, thank God, turns out worked out in our favor. The Odin wasn't going to be enough on its own. So hopefully you guys really enjoyed this video. So I know some of you guys really do enjoy some of these longer format videos. So when I get the chance, I do like to sprinkle them in. And this deck was doing great for me and has performed really well. I played a little more today, which is the following day from most of those games. And hasn't performed as well, but just might have got pretty unlucky. And that does happen sometimes. Like I've had one game with this deck, just one out of about 30, where I drew only my top end cards for 5 turns. I literally drew an opening hand of Norman, Olivia, Odin. And then proceeded to draw another Norman, a Juno, and a Lathium, like for 3 turns. It drew nothing else. And that was horrendous. But that doesn't usually happen. It's very, very rare that you end up in a situation like that. So, hopefully you guys did enjoy it. You'll find the deck list for this deck in the description below. You can hit the like button and follow for more content. Until next time, guys, I'll see you then.